kind of wasn't going to do a video today, but then thought about how I'd been doing them daily and figured, hey, what the heck, why not? That's the thing I'm doing lately, which made it easier to make a video than to not make a video. And that's kind of the thought today, that anytime I've done these series of daily videos, sometimes for half a year, sometimes for 3 to 5 months, anytime I did the weekly blogging for 5 or 6 years, which became one of my first ebooks, sort of the best selections from that, a lot of different things that have been useful to me, right? The 7 months of daily prototyping and so on. It wasn't as if I sat down and decided, okay, for the next week I'm doing this, for the next 7 months I'm doing this, for the next 6 months I'm doing that. Instead, it was something where one day I made an active decision, I'm going to do this. Just doing it once. But a habit begins by doing it once, right? And then once we made some sort of interval of finding a way to fit it in, once we've gotten over the awkward hurdle of that's not a thing that I do, we've given ourselves supporting evidence that actually that is the sort of thing that I do. That's the thing I've been doing lately. That's the thing that I'm going to keep doing. And so many folks who I meet are running into problems if they're working on their respective projects, sometimes game development, sometimes other stuff anymore. And the difficulty is that they aren't really doing it in terms of it's not fitting in at all. And the hard part, right, is if none fits in, you have no multiplier. If you're doing any at all, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, you get a multiplier. What I mean by that, obviously, if you're doing it monthly, you're going to have a 12x, whatever you get done in 1 month. If you're doing a weekly, which I will say, for example, so our home team projects are paced weekly, partly because a lot of our people are busy. They've got kids, they've got classes, they've got full-time jobs, they've got other projects they do outside of home team. And so in home team, they want to fit a few hours here and there. For most of them, they have a sort of schedule. Maybe it's Monday evening, maybe it's Saturday morning, maybe it's a little couple hour here or two or both. But those kind of things of however much gets done in a week, you get an 8-month project, you get a lot of multiplier on the number of weeks, right? You get a 2-month project, right? So it's like times 8-ish for the number of weeks. And then you got 2, 3, 4, 5 team members involved on that. You get a bigger multiplier on that, but it begins from, is anything happening, right? It doesn't help to have additional team members if they're not doing anything. Each person that's doing something is what you get a multiplier on. And this includes, obviously, on our own things of if we can get ourselves to do it even once, to sit down and write a page, to sit down and work on another sprite. That's what we can build on. That's what we can be, because we start to see ourselves as, I'm a person who does that. I've already done that. I know how to do that. And we're past that barrier. It's part of why when people are newer to our communities, we often encourage them, before you're actually doing anything of substance that's creditable on a project, before you're worrying about what task to do and how to do it, first you just go through the motions of what would happen if I did a task. And we call it a practice commit, right? We make a commit to the repo where there's literally no change besides like adding a meaningless comment to then remove it, to go through the steps. Because then, okay, well now I'm a person who uses GitHub. Now I'm a person who makes commits. And it's the same sort of thing, right? If you're on the swim team, well, until you see yourself as a person who gets in the water, you're not really in the swim club. You're not really swimming. Doesn't help if you're on the team if you're not in the water. It is literally just about these little course corrections of, I haven't been in the habit of doing this, right? It's easy if you've been doing it. It's easy if you're in the habit of exercising or working on games or reading or writing or whatever thing you want to be doing, meditating, taking time to play games for yourself or work on your podcast. It's easy if you already have momentum. What's hard is that little itty bitty shift. What the methodology is all about is just externalizing your clear intention to yourself of, I haven't been doing this, but I am going to do it now. And that little difference it makes is we can no longer deny to ourselves that that's actually my intention. We can no longer ignore or let the time get blurry of where the energy and effort go if we can see ourselves kind of realigning to, well, there's just one specific thing that I'm really trying to get myself to do before I'm going to try to get myself to do something else. And that little itty bitty nudge is enough. And you'll often know this, right? You get a small increment of a change in your direction. Obviously, over a long enough period of time, it leads to a significant change in where you result. Because only by doing it once, ever, does it become a thing you do. Once a day, once a week, once a month, or at all. And so in thinking about how to take a year, which a typical year, right, is a series I like to emphasize, of typical weeks or typical months and typical days. You can't plan around the few exceptions of when all things align, when there's nothing else to be done, when you have no responsibilities. That'll never happen. That's not how life works, right? Instead, it becomes, in a given week, how can I fit in any amount of time on this thing that's important to me? And once you fit in any amount of time, you're able to tell yourself, right? You're a person who fits in any amount of time a week, who does something to move that forward. That's what adds up. That's the multiplier. That's what leads to having, just like these, some daily videos, which not every single one's a hit, but the ones who were hits, those didn't happen without the experimentation. It's been true for lots of my projects that have begun from a daily, a monthly, a weekly. Essentially, there was an activity of R&D, of finding my footing, of finding my voice, of finding my point, for example, the self-command program and developing that further and testing that with people. Speaking of which, that's still, again, being promoted this week. Yesterday's video was the details. I think I'll throw the same link in the description. Still available to the end of November 2021 if you want to check that out on a 75% discount. That's it for the day, though. Just want to encourage you in thinking about starting a new habit. It's something where it can't begin right until you're doing it at all. And so it becomes a question of how do you get yourself to do something that you're not already in the routine of doing, that you don't already have a reputation to yourself, even as I'm a person who practices this instrument, works on writing my novel or whatever. It begins by getting yourself to do it, and that's part of what the self-command material is about. Just the simple, easy technique of externalizing your intention to help get you that little shift that over time can lead to a habit, can lead to a regular thing. Only through that kind of action, right, can we start to change our situations, change how we see ourselves, change our opportunities available to us. All those good things start from got to create motion. And self-command's about that little change, and not just the moment you've had, but the moment when you want to have. Because a good habit is hard to break as a bad habit. Right? You get doing yourself the things you want to do, the things you mean to be doing, then it becomes as hard to shift away from that as it was to get yourself in that lane. Just got to make that shift. That's it for the day, though. You can check out the link in the description. Catch you in the day. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.